Story 1. The Midnight Visitors. Michael had been a truck driver for over a decade, and in all his years on the road, he had encountered his fair share of strange things. But nothing compared to the night he found himself stranded at a lonely rest stop along Route 89. The night was a stormy one. The rain pounded against his windshield, making visibility nearly impossible. He had planned to drive through the night to make up for lost time, but the storm had other ideas. Reluctantly, he pulled into an isolated rest stop nestled between thick rows of trees that swayed wildly in the howling wind. Michael exhaled, letting the exhaustion seep into his muscles. He reached for his thermos, eager to take a sip of coffee when he heard it. A soft knock at his passenger side window. His heart jolted. Who the hell would be out in a storm like this? Turning his head, he saw two figures standing in the rain, their clothes drenched and clinging to their frail bodies. A boy and a girl, both appearing no older than 10, stood motionless, their heads bowed slightly. Michael's gut twisted with unease. Something about the children didn't feel right. He cracked the window slightly. "Hey kids, what are you doing out here? Where are your parents?" The girl raised her head first, and the sight of her eyes made Michael's breath catch in his throat. Pitch black, not just dark irises, but solid, soulless voids where human eyes should have been. The boy followed, his expression eerily blank. "Sir, can you give us a ride?" the girl asked in monotonous, robotic tone. Michael felt the hairs on his arms rise. His instincts screamed at him to close the window and drive away. Instead, he swallowed hard and forced himself to remain calm. "Where are you headed?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "Just a little further," the boy responded, his lips barely moving. "Please, it's cold." Michael's grip on the steering wheel tightened. He had heard stories, urban legends about children with eyes as black as coal. They always asked for entry, whether into a home, a car, or place of safety. And those who let them in never came back the same. A heavy silence filled the truck's cabin. The rain continued to hammer down, but Michael barely noticed. He was locked in a silent battle with himself. Everything logical told him to help the kids. Everything primal told him to run. Then the pressure changed. The air grew thick, suffocating, as if an unseen force was coiling around him. He realized he had been gripping the door handle, about to unlock it. "No!" Yanking his hand away, Michael shoved the truck into gear and slammed his foot on the accelerator. The truck lurched forward, tires screeching against the slick pavement. In the rearview mirror, the children stood unmoving, watching him as he sped away. Their soulless eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. Michael didn't stop until he reached the next town, where he pulled into a well-lit gas station, heart hammering against his ribs. He had narrowly escaped something unnatural that night, and yet he knew deep down that this wasn't over. Story 2. The knock at 3 a.m. Sarah had always been a skeptic. Ghost stories, urban legends, supernatural myths. She dismissed them all as tricks of the mind. That was until the night she woke up to a soft knocking at her front door. It was 3 a.m. Bleary-eyed, she sat up in bed, confused. She lived alone in a quiet suburban neighborhood where unexpected visitors were rare, especially at this hour. Another knock. Sarah hesitated, her pulse quickening. She tiptoed to the window and peeked through the blinds. Two children stood on her porch, their faces obscured by the dim glow of the streetlight. They were deathly pale, their heads slightly bowed as if waiting patiently. A chill ran down her spine. She pressed her forehead against the glass, trying to make sense of the situation. Why would kids be out alone at this hour? Where were their parents? She took a deep breath and called out through the door, "Who's there?" The boy lifted his head. Sarah gasped. Black. His eyes were completely black. "Miss, may we use your phone?" he asked, his voice flat and devoid of any natural tone. Sarah stumbled back, her breath shallow. I don't have a phone," she lied, panic setting in. "Please let us in. It's so cold." The girl chimed in, her voice eerily calm. Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over her. Her body refused to move, trapped between logic and terror. The knocking resumed, this time more urgent. "We can't come in unless you invite us," the boy said, his tone turning sharp. Sarah's hands trembled as she backed away. The knocking grew louder, more insistent. Then, without warning, it stopped. Silence fell over the house. Morning came, and Sarah cautiously opened her door. The porch was empty, but as her gaze lowered, she noticed deep, claw-like scratches on the wooden door frame. She knew then that whatever those children were, they would be back. Story 3. The passenger. Liam had been driving for hours. The road stretched endlessly before him, shrouded in darkness. He enjoyed night drives, but tonight felt different, unsettling. He was about to switch to another podcast when he saw a small figure on the roadside. A young boy, standing alone in the dead of night. Liam slowed down. "Hey kid, you okay? Need a ride home?" The boy turned slowly, revealing a face so pale it almost seemed translucent. But it was his eyes that sent a spike of terror through Liam's veins. Black, deep, endless voids that swallowed the light. The air in the car grew thick as the boy took a step forward. Against his better judgment, Liam unlocked the door. "Just drive," the boy said, sliding into the passenger seat. As they moved down the empty road, shadows flickered at the edges of Liam's vision. The boy remained eerily silent. Then, in a voice not entirely human, the boy whispered, "You shouldn't have stopped." Liam's vision blurred. His grip slackened. The road twisted into darkness. The last thing he saw was the boy's eerie, knowing grin before everything faded into blackness.